In this video lecture, we will be looking at numbers in Java programming. Normally in Java programming and in almost all the programming languages, we work with numbers, and most numbers we use are primitive data types, and they are such as the byte, the int, double, long, float, short, and so on. So we'll be using lots and lots of numbers, and we're going to look deep into numbers. We're going to look into different methods of converting from one primitive data type to another. So we have lots of things to do under numbers. So we'll be looking at different methods in this class, and I will be providing us with all the methods we need to move from one primitive data type, you convert to another. So you'll be taking this step by step, and in any way you have any question, please just feel free to put your questions down. I'm going to answer you. Okay, here we have some methods we use to invoke what I mean invoke, we used to call numbers. We have byte. So the byte is going to return the byte value to you, and we have short, is going to return the short value. We have long, is going to return the long value, float, double, and so on. So here I provided an integer value of 2 assigned to variable a. We're going to use these methods to invoke these numbers, and here we're going to return it based on either byte, short, int, long, float, double. So here we're going to see how this works. They are default methods and they accept no parameters. So you can see I pass no parameters into any of them. So I'm going to use these two to get these things back. They are defaults. So after then I'll go ahead and explain the one below. So let's go ahead and see the output of this. Now go ahead and compile this, and I have 2 for int, it gives me back 2, and for short I got 2, long I got 2. Then looking at float and double, you can see I have 2.0 2.0 respectively for each of them, because it converts them to decimal numbers. So it converted the 2 to decimal number because that is what the type they are. So the last one is the byte. The byte returns 2. So in numbers and in mathematics, we'll be dealing with many things as we're moving deep into this. That's why I added pi here. So we're going to work with mathematical functions as we move into numbers. So it's going to be very awesome. If I go ahead and run this code, you can see that the value of pi is 3.1416, and if you use your calculator, that is what the value of pi is. So Java has the ability of doing some mathematical calculation for us, like the square roots, the power, the exponential, and so on. So we'll be looking depth into all this to see how they work. So this is just a general overview that we have some methods we're using, and we are going to use lots and lots of these methods, not just the default method, but methods that are used in Java programming dealing with numbers. Okay, so this is all about numbers, and let's go ahead and dive into them. But if you have any question under here, please just use the question and answer section, and I'm going to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video lecture as we dive in and look more into numbers. In this video lecture, we'll be looking at boxing and unboxing numbers in Java programming. So this is a topic that most people are not familiar with, but we're going to touch it because it is very important. So in Java programming, we normally work with numbers. We use primitive data types such as bytes, int, long, double, float, and so on. Okay, why using these numbers? There's a time you convert primitive data types into objects, because in Java programming, everything is treated as an object. So, converting primitive data types into objects is known as boxing, and this is taken care by the compiler. So, I have an example here. Float x equal to 7.6f. So here I'm boxing float into a float object. So you can see the comment I put there, boxing float object, boxing float to a float object, and x equal to x plus 20, and this is should be 20.0. Okay, 20.0f. So unboxes the float to a float. So now I use system.out.println. If I go ahead and hit on this, it's giving me 27.6, and some will ask me what really goes on here. So when you are moving all these values into a variable, you are boxing them into either int object or float object or double object or whatever. And when x is assigned an integer or float value, then the compiler boxes that integer or float, because x is a float at this case here. So later x is unboxed so that it can be added as a float at this point, and that is why I have 27.6. So this is not a much detail where people go into. Most people neglect this because it really doesn't affect much in your programming, as far as you know the methods you're using at every point in time. So boxing and unboxing is what I felt like I have to touch it more, so that you know that when you are assigning values to variables, you are boxing them. So I just want to bring it up so that we know about it as we move ahead and dive into the course properly. So thank you so much, and if this really confuses you, please put your questions under the question and answer section, and point out what you didn't understand. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture. In this video lecture, we will look at another method called CompareTo Method in Java programming under numbers. So when we are comparing numbers, we have a particular method called CompareTo Method. So this method is going to enable you as a Java developer to compare between two different numbers to know if you actually getting what you want to get. And in this case, you will either get 0, 1, or -1. So this method compares number objects that are evoked the method to the argument. You as a developer, you can be able to compare bytes, long, integer, float, or any other primitive data type. In this example, I put integer method, integer primitive data type. So that is what I'm comparing here. Then, if the integer is equal to the argument, I'm going to get 0 back in return. But if the integer is less than if the integer is equal to the argument, I'm going to get 0. If the integer is less than the argument, I will get -1. But if the integer is greater than the argument, I will get 1. So let's go ahead and look at this example here to check it out and see how it works, because we are going to do everything practical. So let's go ahead and click on this. So I have 10 here, and I assigned 10 to x. I'm comparing x dot CompareTo method. You see that? 5, 10, and 15. So I'll be comparing each of these. and x compared to 5, x is greater than 5. Therefore, I have 1 as output. The second one, x compared to 10, and 10 compared to 10 is 10. So this is 0. And I have x compared to 15, where 10 is less than 15. So I have minus 1. So if I go ahead and change the value of x to be 15, I'll go ahead and compare this again. You see, here, x is compared to 5, 15 is greater than 5. So I have 1. And next one is 15 compared to 10, I have 1 as well. And 15 compared to 15, here I have 0. So you can see that you can compare methods. You can compare primitive data types using a method called CompareTo Method. So I believe that you can be able to practice this and put it down on your own and check it out on your laptop and know if you're really getting just the same thing. So if you have issue along this way, please try to use the question and answer sections, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture. In this video lecture, we'll be looking at EqualsTo Method in Java programming under numbers. So, EqualsTo Method is another type of method which we use in our day-to-day programming here in Java programming, or in Java language, or what I'm saying, Java programming. All right, so okay, so Java programming, we have some methods that we use, and EqualsTo Method is another type that we use. What this helps us to do is to determine whether the number object which invokes the method is equal to the object that is passed as an argument. So it will give us a boring result, true or false. So if the method returns true, that means the argument is not null. But if the argument is null, it's going to return false. And when you are doing equal to, it's just like a CompareTo method. You must make sure that you are trying to equal to what the data type that is just the same. So you must compare same type of primitive data type. You cannot compare integer data type to short or to float. So let's take a look at the example here. I have an integer value with a variable x, y, z, and I have a short a. Here I assign 5, 10, 15 respectively to them, and I pass this as an argument to this method here, which is the equals method. So all the equals method here have arguments y, z, and a. Here at number 12, you can see something like a small bulb here, and if you take your mouse close to that place, it will tell you unlikely argument type for equals. Short seems to be unrelated to integer. And if you want to check out this, if they are equal, it's going to give you a false, even if they are of the same. So let's go ahead and check out this value, and let's run this code right now. So here I have this code, x equals y, and y is 10, it is false because they are not equal. X equals z, and this is true because z is 5 and x is 5. Okay, let's take a look at short, which is 5 and x is 5 at the same time. So at this point, you see that it's giving me false just here. Why it's supposed to be true? This is because I'm comparing two different types of primitive data types. Let's go ahead and remove the short and see what it's going to give us right now. Let's take it back to int and go ahead and run this code again. You can see that z and a are true. Why? I have my y to be false. So I believe that you've understood that you can only compare or equal things of different primitive data types. So I believe that this is really clear and you understood everything here. So you have learned how to use the equal method in Java programming, and I believe that henceforth you start using it. So go ahead and put this code on your laptop and check it out, play around with it, and in case if you have any problem, please try to put your questions under the question and answer sections, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture. In this video lecture, we will be looking at ToString method in Java programming. ToString method is a type of method that we use in Java programming for numbers. So this method usually gets a string object that represents the value of the number object. We have an example here. So if the method takes a primitive data type as an object, then the string object representing the primitive data value is returned. So we have 10 as a value passed to a variable of integer x. So the first system.out.println, the first method, we're going to use this ToString to be able to print 10 out. Then we add the value of integer dot ToString is going to print out 35 instead of 10. Let's go ahead and see how we can do this. And let's go ahead and run this code to check it out. So here I see 10 and 35 printed out. So if the method takes two arguments, then a string representation of the first argument in the radix specified by the second argument will be returned for us. So this is how it's been done. Usually most of these methods get students confused at the first time, but when you continue to program and come a particular time that you need this in Java programming, you begin to master it. So seeing it the first time and trying it out helps you a lot to be able to grab the concept and put it in your fingertips, and know that one day in Java programming you will come across a point where you will need this. So if you're having any problem understanding this, please use the question and answer section. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture. In this video lecture, we'll be looking at another type of method called ValueOf Method. So in this lecture, ValueOf Method will be discussed properly because most students get confused here. Why? Is because it's something they've not heard of, and as beginners in Java programming, most people are seeing it for the first time, and they will be like, wow, what is going on? Okay, the ValueOf Method will return only the relevant number object holding the value of the argument which is passed to it. The argument can be a primitive data type or string value. This method is also a static type of method as well, and it can take two arguments, where one can be a string and the other one is called a radix. So let's take a look at this. You pass an argument. For the first one, integer with variable a. You pass an argument into the ValueOf method for the integer value, and you're expecting to get this back again. Same with double and float. Now looking at integer d, I passed a string value. Remember, you can pass a string value as I just told you. So here I pass a string value with another argument there, and that is 13. If I run this, I'm going to get not 500 but something different. But if I put, it starts from 10. If I put 10, I'm going to get back 500. So let's go ahead and see how the value of method works. Let's run this code and check it out. So for the variable a, I got my a back. So that is the value of the integer, the argument which I passed into it. So the int returns an integer holding the value of the specified primitive data type, while this string returns integer holding the value of the specified string representation. So I have 40 here under floats for the variable c, and it returned just the same 40, and 40 is a string value and not a float type. Now I have 500 and it returned 845. So this is not constant. If I go back and change that 13 to 10 and run this again, I'll get 500. So when you change different values, you get random numbers. Change again to 18, you have 1620. So the value of is going to return the value of the argument that are passed into these data types. So this is all about the value of. There might be a case when you will need to use it in future, and then you can start to make use of the value of type of method. So this the radius, which is 1810, which you can be able to change, it's used to decide the value of the returned integer based on the passed string. So if you change this string to like 800 and run this code, it's going to give you something else and not just the same. So I believe that you understood the value of, because most students usually get confused at this point. But that is not a problem. In case if you have any question, please don't fail to use the question and answer sections. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture. In this video lecture, we're looking at ParseTo Method. So this is another type of method in Java programming. This method is used to get a primitive data type of a certain string. It's also a static method and can have one or two arguments. Okay, this is an example here, just like one of the examples you've seen before under string to method. So here we're looking at parse. We're trying to get a primitive data type of some certain string. So if we go ahead, I pass an argument 5. So they are all string values. I pass an argument 5 here, which is a string, into the integer using parseInt. And for the double, I use parseDouble. So this is going to give me back the output in integer or double format. So for the integer.parseInt that has both a string value, this has 2 arguments. So this is called a radius. It will be used to convert this string value into an integer value. Let's go ahead and run this code to see how it works. So now I have run the code. I got a string value of 5 as an integer value because I use a parseInt for that. And for parseDouble of 14, you can see that I have 14.0. And for the string value of 121, using radius of 13, I got back 196 as an integer value. If I go ahead and change it to 10, I'm going to get 121. So you see that. So go ahead and check it out and play around with it, and you understand this more better. As I usually tell you, that most of this method, beginners find it difficult at the initial time. But when you begin to program and move into Java development very well, you will begin to master it, and it's not going to be hard for you. But first and foremost, put it down on your laptop and code it, play around with it, And if you have any question, use this question and answer section. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture. In this video lecture, we will be looking at the absolute method in Java programming. Under numbers, we have what is called the ABS method, the absolute method. This method gives the absolute value of the argument. And this argument can either be int, float, long, double, short, byte, or anything. But it must not be string. So, here we have an example here very before us, and we have negative values assigned to integer value of variable x, and a negative 10 assigned to float variable y, and a negative 50 assigned to double with a variable z. So this is going to give us back the absolute values of this argument. So we pass arguments x, z, and y with a mass.abs. So this method will help us to get the absolute values of these variables. So go ahead and run this code to check it out. So you can see for the integer value, I have integer 15 and not minus 15. And for float, I have plus 10.0 and not negative 10 as it's supposed to be. And for z, I have 50.0 for double and not negative 50. So this method will always help you to get the absolute value of the argument always. So I believe that this is clear and you understood it. I hope that this is not the one that is going to give you a headache when you are programming. So play along with it and put this code down on your laptop and check it out. In case if you have any problem along the way, use the question and answer sections and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture. In this video lecture, we will be looking at Ceil method in Java programming. This is a method we have not heard of, and most beginners will be like, what is going on? What is Ceil method? This method will give you back the smallest integer value that is greater than or equal to the argument. The smallest integer value, that is what you will get. Even if you pass this to double or float, it will come back in return as just an integer alone. So we have an example, negative 40.985 and 20 for double and float respectively. So this will return just the integer values alone. Let's go ahead and check it out, because we have passed in an argument of x here for this method and the y for this method. So going over here, let's go ahead and run this code right now. You can see that I have negative 40.0 and negative 20.0 instead of negative 41. So this returns just the smallest integer value and nothing more. So this is what Ceil helps us to do in Java programming. So the Ceil method is used just to return the smallest integer value. So check it out, and by putting this code down on your laptop and playing around with it, if you have any question, please use the question and answer section. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture. In this video lecture, we will be looking at floor method in Java programming. Okay, Under primitive data types, numbers, or the numeric primitive data types, as we usually say, the floor method will give you the largest integer value that is less than or equal to the argument. This is the opposite of the Ceil method. Remember that in Ceil method that you have the smallest integer value returned to you, but here you are going to get the largest integer value returned to you. So let's go ahead and check out this method that we have. We have double and float variables created respectively with different values assigned to them. Negative 40.989 assigned to the variable D of primitive data type double, and negative 30 assigned to F variable of float type. So I pass these two arguments to the floor method, which you can see just here. So let's go ahead and run this code to see what we get. Running this code, we got 41 for D and 30 for F. If we go ahead and put 30.9F for the floats and run this code again, we got 31 because it's going to give you the largest integer value. This is opposite of the Ceil method that's going to give you the lowest or the smallest integer value. But in any case, both gives you just the integer values alone and nothing more. So I believe you really understood about floor method and Ceil method in Java programming. In case if you have any problem understanding them, put your questions on the question and answer section and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture. In this video lecture, we will be looking at the Rint method. The Rint method is similar to the floor method. It returns the integer that is closest in value to the argument. So this is what it does. So here you have double, you can put float, you can put anything, but what you are getting is just the integer alone, which is closest in value to the argument. So I have 70.550 and 70.480. Now if I go ahead and run this code, you can see that the first one gave me 70.5, the 70.550 gave me 71.0, and I still retain 70.0 because it's going to convert this approximately, and that is why I got 71. To approximate it to the nearest that and give you the output. So it's just the same with our floor, but I need to discuss all this so that in programming you can go ahead and check out any one you want. This is called Rint. So this is the argument here. I passed X and Y respectively to get different results so that we can understand what we are doing. So check out yours and try to program it and pass your own argument here and try to know if you will get the same thing with my own. In case you have an issue or you're getting something different, please use this question and answer section and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture. In this video lecture, we will be looking at another method called round method in Java programming. Okay, in Java programming, we have lots of methods for numeric primitive data types, and round method is just one of them. It functions like most of the other methods out there, so you have lots and lots of methods at your disposal to use at anytime you just want to. So let's go ahead and look at round method and see how it works. This method returns the closest, longest integer value for you. It's going to return the closest, longest integer value to you. So just like once we've done previously, in case you visited it before coming over to this lecture. Okay, let's go ahead and run this because I've passed the arguments x and y to math.round, and that is the method we are using to check out this. So I passed in 100.523 to x and 100 just for y. Let's go ahead and run this and see it. 101, that is for the double, and 100, that is for the float, for x and y respectively. If I come over to float and put 100.9f, if I run this code, I'm going to get 101 as well, because this moves it to the closest long and gives you integer value in return. So I believe that you're already getting this, and you've learned a lot from here. In case you have any question, please don't fail to use the question and answer section, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. So thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture. In this video lecture, we'll be looking at maximum method in Java programming. Okay, maximum method is another type of method we have under numeric primitive data types. Let's go ahead and look at it. So this is pure opposite of minimum method in Java programming. This gives you the maximum of the two arguments that you put in, because this accepts just two arguments alone, so that it can be able to check out between the two which of them has the largest value, and that is what it gives to the user. So this is opposite of minimum method. Let's go ahead and run this code just very before us so that we can be able to see how this works out. Now I'll go ahead and run this code, and you can see this 20.546 for the first method here, and the next one is 18.8. So when you check out these under minimum, you'll be getting 18.1 and 20.132 respectively. So I believe that you've seen the difference between the minimum and the maximum, and henceforth you can know when to use each of them in your Java programming so that you don't make mistake along the way. Now I will want you to put down this on your laptop and code it as soon as possible. Check it out and make sure that it runs very well. In case you have any problem on this, please do well to reach out to me, and I'm going to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture. In this video lecture, we'll be looking at minimum method. So this method is used in Java programming for numeric primitive data types. So this method accepts just two arguments, and this argument, it selects the lowest. So when you pass two arguments to this method, it checks out and give you back the lowest among the two. So this is what you get, and this argument can be int, float, long, or double. So it's not a must it's going to be an integer or float respectively. It can be anything. So let's go ahead and check it out by running this code just very before us and see it working out right. So go ahead and run this code right now. So for the first method here, I have 20.132. That is the lowest among these two. And for the second one, I have 18.1. So this method just takes in the lowest among the two arguments and push it down to the user, and you see it. So this is all about minimum, and you see it's very easy and very straightforward. So I would like you to put it down on your laptop and go ahead and try it as soon as possible. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to use the question and answer section, and I'm going to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and I'm going to see you in the next video lecture.